300 Spartans, over 200,000 Persian soldiers. You know the story. The most famous defeat and most Pyrrhic victory in the history of mankind. But what if, instead of 300 Spartans, we had this? This video is sponsored by War Thunder. Astartes are superhuman in every sense of the word. The superhuman will to overcome the trials that earned them the right to ascend from mortals to angels, to stand against horrors alien, demonic, and heretical. The superhuman bodies augmented with gene seed of demigods, implanted with 19 additional organs necessary to wage war on a galactic scale. The superhuman senses and skills of a veteran of hundreds of missions, and the superhuman battle instincts forged in the anvil of thousands of kills. Long story short, these are 8 feet tall warrior monks who know no fear, are armed with the finest weaponry from the 40th millennium, and are clad head to toe in ceramite armor that can shrug off RPGs. Maybe these Astartes have been marooned on an uncontacted world and now face off against a Bronze Age army. Maybe the Chaos Gods have exiled them through space and time in an effort to meddle with humanity, or maybe Tracing the Infinite is running a simulation and being a prick as usual. What matters is that these space marines from across the 40th millennium have been dropped at the pass of Thermopylae, and now face off against an army that outnumbers them 40,000 to 1. No magic, no reinforcements, and only the ammo that they carry. Bolters, chainswords, gore, guts, and glory. Which one of the Emperor's loyal Astartes will hold the line the longest against the army of Xerxes, and which one will make them pay the dearest cost for their inevitable victory? The 9 chapters of the first founding are all numbered, and even if some numbers are missing for reasons that no law-abiding imperial citizen will dare to discuss, we can still follow the order. So, let's start with the First Legion. There is a dark secret at the heart of imperial history, a secret with which this chapter is more familiar than any other. For centuries they have lived in penance, calling themselves unforgiven for this past trespass, becoming the epitome of discipline, developing their own brand of monastic martial prowess, and living in a silent yet absolute dedication to the imperial cause. They are still his angels, but they are not glorious and luminous. Their work is done in the dark. We're starting strong, folks. The Dark Angels are an impassive, silent, and secretive society of warriors, with the closest historical comparison being the Knights Templar. Every chapter will bring unique units befitting not only their lore, but also their tactics, strategies, and fighting styles. But to remain consistent, I have tried my best to ensure that these squads all match each other, mostly by looking at their in-game points. And the Dark Angels are bringing one of their most expensive points per model unit: 6 Inner Circle Companions. Only the most elite and trusted members of their chapter earn access to that terrible ancient truth, and only after a lifetime of toil and service, of proving themselves unfalteringly loyal and devoid of even an iota of doubt. To those of the Inner Circle, this knowledge becomes the fuel powering some of the most terrifyingly efficient warriors in the Imperium. Their Calibanite greatswords can cut through armor like butter, and their size means that these power swords can easily lop off 3 heads in one swing. They also have access to heavy bolt pistols, which, despite their name, are more akin to portable grenade launchers, easily damaging not only their intended target, but also wounding those around them. Each carry about 88 rounds, and they will have to make each one of these count. The main disadvantage that the Dark Angels have is their numbers. I guess. What I mean is that the pass to Thermopylae is about 100 meters wide at its narrowest, and there are only 6 of them, meaning that each one would have to cover about 17 meters. Not to mention that the Thermopylae path to the south is an obvious weakness to which they have been alerted, and while they do not have the numbers to do anything about it, they have their ways of monitoring it. Their best option is for the 6 brothers to hold the pass together. They will try to hold at the 3 narrowest positions of the pass, at the west gate, the middle gate, and the east gate. They will hold a double line formation, 4 at the front, 2 at the back. The strategy consists in luring the enemy into the pockets of the formation, giving them the false hope of surrounding the companions before suddenly flanking them. The only way forward for the Persians is through the sword. Still, it's an army of 200,000 soldiers. Their weapons do little to the Space Marines, but with some 200 men brave enough to swarm one of these Astartes, you could pin them down to the ground and smother them in human bodies, rendering them useless. And they can try to do that 1,000 times over. The trick lies in never giving them the opportunity to do so. The Dark Angels hold the formation with uncanny discipline, only ever stepping back as one. The Inner Circle speaks in a unique dialect known only to them, and they do so sparingly. Most of the time, they cut down their enemies in complete silence, and anticipate the moves of their brothers before they even make them. They all feel the weft and weave of the enemy's advance, pushing when they see the line break and enemy morale falter before the imposing figures of the Angels of Death, stepping back when there are signs of fresh reinforcements or of more experienced soldiers, switching to the heavy bolt pistols when they need to create space. Eventually, the enemy understands the extent of their numerical advantage and the limitations of their foes. The most disposable infantry is put at the front, while the Persian Immortals, the elite infantry of the King of Kings, push from the south flank. The Dark Angels have to adjust their formation, splitting into 3 pods of 2 to hold left, right, and center. To avoid letting any stragglers through, they have to give ground more readily and be more liberal in their use of ammunition. Step by step, hour by hour, it takes a full day for them to be pushed to the middle gate, managing to stall the advance of the army at the dilapidated Phocian wall, where the pass narrows further. At the end of the first day, their robes are torn and their armor is slathered in blood. As they clean it, they realize that the rain of arrows they have been enduring all day has all but scraped the paint from their armor. But the 6 still stand. They do not need sleep, but these veterans know better than not to rest and prepare. The army will still be there at sunrise. Do you know what else will still be there at sunrise? What? Me, because I just pulled an all-nighter playing War Thunder, the sponsor of today's video and the world's most comprehensive vehicle combat game. Want to engage in realistic combat that simulates damage to individual components and discover that shells seem magnetically attracted to your fuel supply? Play War Thunder! Want to spend way too much time customizing your vehicle only to get blown to smithereens by a Leopard 2A7V because you can't hit the broadside of a barn with your shit aim? Get War Thunder! Want to play it on your phone because you're too lazy to fix that PC you paid way too much money for and this is totally a fictional example? War Thunder! You can now play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. Just make sure to use our links in the video description or pinned comment to sign up. If you make a new account or haven't played in 6 months, you also receive a massive bonus pack with lots of goodies for PC and console to give you a head start in the game. Besides 3 premium vehicles, you'll also receive a 50% experience and income booster, 2 advanced vehicles for rent, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account time, among other things. The offer is available for a limited time only, so don't forget to claim it now. On the second day, the Persian forces split their efforts, with half pushing forward and half taking to dismantling the wall. And despite the best efforts of the companions to interfere, eventually the Persians managed to bring it down and force them to resume their methodic repositioning. To make matters worse, a small creature signals from atop the cliffside. This Watcher in the Dark, a servant of the Inner Circle, was tasked with observing the mountain pass, and its presence confirms their fears. By the evening, the Dark Angels will be surrounded. Even so, they continue their slow march backwards, giving ground only once it has been painted crimson. With the hordes of Xerxes surrounding them at the East Gate, the 6 Dark Angels change to a 3-point star formation. As they grow closer, the Persians begin to falter. It seems that pressing the 6 Astartes together has only made them deadlier. Still, even as they try to keep the army at bay while preventing their advance, there are simply more bodies than their blades can cut. The hours grow long and the enemy grows bolder. The Immortals of Xerxes have begun to see the way to victory, and their spears and swords have found the chinks in the ceramite armor, at the joints of the groin, under the armpits, behind the knees, below the helmets. When the first companion buckles to his knees, a furious roar spreads across the crowd as they swarm him. They can die. His brothers have to step back and close the circle tighter. If their backs become exposed, this will all be over. It takes hours and hours of incessant battle, the humming of power swords playing a symphony of screams and painting a canvas of blood into the mounds of corpses that pile upon the pass. But the space gets tighter, and while the Astartes can shake off the arms of one man, there is beauty and tragedy in the notion that a dozen mere mortals can drag down an angel to the ground. One by one, the companions are disarmed and fall, held down by the horde even as they crush skulls and break spines with their mighty blows. Regardless of whether they have been killed or not, the 6 Dark Angels held the pass until the dawn of the 3rd day, but no more. The way forward is cleared for the armies of Xerxes. But what's the damage? Well, at the rate they were going, on average each Dark Angel was swinging their blade 25 times per minute, which, accounting for misses and critical strikes, means that they were killing about 850 men per hour individually for 12 hours on the 3rd day, and about half that rate in the 2nd day and a third of that rate in the 1st. That's some 90,000 dead, which is more than 4 times the amount killed by the Spartans and their Greek allies, and about half of Xerxes' army. With such tremendous losses, the King of Kings may have to turn his army back. It seems like our gold standard has been set. Let's see who can top that off. The oldest soldiers in the armies of Xerxes heard stories in their youth of a time before Cyrus the Great, before the Persian Empire, a time when they wandered the land as nomads, and when they feared nothing more than the horse-riding tribes of the steppes. Today, they face that ancestral fear again, but rather than the whinnying of horses, they hear revving roars of beasts of steel, ridden by pale riders who know no fear. Motorcycle-riding Mongol super soldiers. If that did not get you on board, nothing will. I thought long and hard about whether it was fair to give these guys the bikes, then I realized that if I didn't, I would regret it forever, so here we are. Also, believe it or not, they are actually the cheapest squad of all those fielded today. The White Scars are famous for fielding far more bikers than any other chapter, and so squads of 6 outriders like this one are often the backbone of their armies. Each bike is equipped with 2 mounted bolt rifles, the big brother of the heavy bolt pistol, fully automatic but with a slow rate of fire suited for bursts. While there are no official sources, my guess is that they carry about twice as much ammo as a regular Space Marine would, so about 500 rounds total. These bikers also carry bolt pistols for some close-range shooting, as well as the iconic chainswords. Though not as sleek and efficient as power weapons, the trusty chainsword will cut through pretty much anything that isn't some ridiculously strong alien alloy, and it will definitely tear through scale armor and leather shields. Now, I call them bikes, but I do feel that I need to impress upon you how big these things are. Able to go for days without refueling, the Raider pattern combat bike is as much of a weapon as the Bolter and Space Marine it carries, combining the speed of a motorcycle with the weight of an IFV. Being mobile means that the White Scars are masters at hit-and-run tactics, which, while very effective, are not necessarily ideal for holding a position, which is why these outriders will have to take an unorthodox approach to their defense. On the first day, the Persians arrive to find 3 of these warriors in the distance. As they send the first force to test their enemy, the bikers rev their mounts and begin a series of short but deadly forays into the Persian front, using the width of the pass to their advantage to charge into the army, shooting their bolters to weaken the lines and carving into soldiers with their chainswords, before moving out of the range of their arrows. This, of course, does not stop the advance of the army, but it makes the front lines hesitate. It's as if the Astartes want them to gain ground. The army begins ferrying materials for improvised barricades through the lines to try and reduce their mobility, but it is at this time that screams of warning reach the front line. They are being flanked. After riding through the mountain path, the 3 remaining outriders have taken it upon themselves to charge the supply lines of the Persian army, slaughtering their slaves, destroying their vast pantries, and forcing the army to stop their advance to cover their back. So it is on the first day, and on the second, and the nights as well. The soldiers of Xerxes do not get much sleep with the waking nightmare of the roaring engines, nor do they get to fight as much as they have to learn to brace for the assault, whether it comes from the front line or the rear. They do eventually realize that, one way or another, these backline attacks are forcing them forward, and that they are caught within the jagged jaws of the Chagorian chainswords. Most importantly, this manner of assault dissuades any notion of using the mountain path. To try and travel through this terrain with the Pale Riders on the loose is certain death. The only way is forward. When the army reaches the Phocian Wall, however, the attacks seem to stop from both sides. There is a moment of hesitant respite as the army continues its march, unaware of the terror that is about to be unleashed upon them. Around the time that about half of the remaining army has crossed the narrowest stretch in the middle gate, the metal monsters roar in the distance again. A full charge of all 6 Outriders, straight into the lines, blasting the remainder of their ammo to divide the Persian forces into 2 groups. One half is pushed back towards the wall, and held there by 2 of the Outriders' adept maneuvering and constant glancing assaults. The other 4 Astartes dedicate themselves to a merciless slaughter of the remaining forces, harrying them with a continuous motorcade, a chain pushing them ever closer to the Gulf of Malia. Over the course of this maneuver, one by one the bikes sputter their last, empty of fuel and ammunition. Each White Scar wastes no time taking to ground combat, carving into the lines with power swords and bolt pistols. At this point, exhaustion and desperation push the men of Xerxes beyond fear and common sense. As a throng, they push against the warriors, swarming them with their numbers from both sides and collapsing into them, surrounding the 6 dismounted Astartes. And while they fight with Chogorian savagery, they are no inner circle companions. They take their pound of flesh, but eventually they too fall before the Persians. With all their ammo spent and constant attacks every few minutes for 2 days and a night, it's safe to say that the White Scars killed many in their harrying assaults. However, in the moment of the final charge and the herding of the Persian army towards the sea, they were particularly devastating, with thousands dying to chainswords and bolt pistols, and about as many to the fall, for a grand total of 60,000. While they did not hold as long as the Spartans did, and did not kill as many as the Dark Angels, the White Scars dealt a much heavier blow to the enemy. With the supply line broken, this army will soon starve. Unless he can secure a way to maintain his men, Xerxes' invasion will fail. No warriors of the Emperor would hold the Spartans who died at Thermopylae in more reverence than those who, like them, fear death less than shame. Seeing the armies of conscripts at the feet of a false king, the Space Wolves would become woefully aware of why their deaths passed into legend. To face 200,000 men is a feat worthy of a saga. The intriguing possibility of success motivates them as much as their thirst for glory, because the wolves know what it will take to kill this army. Embodying their Viking inspirations, the Space Wolves are as loyal to the Emperor as they are beholden to freedom. It is why they do not follow the Codex Astartes that binds most of the other Space Marine chapters. It is why their rites of initiation are amongst the harshest. It is why they bring wolves to battle. Hell yeah. Today, these veteran Wolf Guard are going to use these power axes and storm shields to brute force their way into an army outnumbering them 4,000 to 1. Make that 2,000 to 1. 2 of the Space Wolves are dual-wielding these power weapons, and all of them carry heavy bolt pistols. The Sons of Fenris are going to keep it simple. The 3 shield-bearing brothers push forward and leave the flanks to the 2 dual-wielders and the wolves. Seek their strongest, slay him, then watch to see which ones break and which ones stand. Then break the ones who stand. Even after the immortals are sent to them, their advance seems unavoidable. They fight with a ferocity that does not seem human, like beasts from the forest and warriors of distant legend. The Persians soon understand. They quickly ask for their lord to flee, but Xerxes is proud. He will not run from any foe. He will go join the troops and see it with his own eyes. It takes the better part of a day, but as the sun rises on the 2nd, he does. They continue to advance through the lines, even if at times they have to stop and call the numbers. The Persians have changed tactics and adapted multiple times now, and the Space Wolves have seemingly conjured an answer to each one. It's like they know the way they fight. And they do. For centuries, each one of them has been on the hunt for false prophets, sorcerer kings, and other tyrants like them, who put pikes in the hands of fearful men and send them to war for selfish gain. Even as their advance slows, even as exhaustion begins to make itself known, they have only one direction, one goal: to take the head of the serpent. But 200,000 is too many spears, too many swings for fury, too many steps for glory. In the end, the last head taker stands alone, fending his foes, cutting them down with animal fury, having completely abandoned strategy or composure. But as he sees himself surrounded by the mass of bodies, he stands one last moment before toppling, locking eyes with Xerxes and seeing only a man. There is no fear in those eyes as he lines the shot of the bolt pistol. In the last second, a devoted soldier throws himself against the weapon, and the shot flies past the King of Kings, splattering the head of his attendant and spraying him with blood. He barely manages to keep his composure as he watches the warrior be pulled into the mass of soldiers. As the red sun rises, the King of Kings lies on the floor, his eyes on his fallen enemy. He orders his men to step away and sees the path of blood carved through his men, a line of red painted over a mile. Even as Xerxes still endeavors to follow this path, having lost 50,000 in one day, there is now a strange gaze in the eyes of his men. They are now woefully aware that their liege is not an untouchable god, and that there is a very simple way to cut this campaign short.
Brother Rozak, when do we get our turn to go?
I suspect the current video will have to perform well to justify making another, Brother Holon.
Well, that better be soon. I don't think Brother Caius is doing so good.
Yeah, full disclosure, this video was originally supposed to feature all 9 of the first founding legions, but then we saw that the video was going to be 2.5 hours long. If this one does well, we'll do the rest, so please share, like, and comment. It will help us out a lot. Again, a huge thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to play it for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile now by using our links in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and consoles, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. It's available for a limited time only, so make sure you don't miss it. As always, a huge thank you to our patrons for supporting us. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.